Welcome everyone to Color Commentary. We are your popper commentators, Michael Petrick and Adrian Gonzalez. How's it going, Adrian?
Pretty good. Pretty good. How are you?
Good. I'm kind of enjoying the fact that we're still stuck in eternal spoiler season because apparently that's just our life now.
Dude, the spoilers will never end.
It certainly feels like it at this point. Like Iconic Masters is coming out in paper this Friday. We've got unstable spoilers going on, and today they just kind of dropped 15 new cards for Pauper. I guess 14. One of them is a commander only thing, but 15 brand new commons showed up on MitGo today, and not to get too much into it before the upkeep, but that's what we're talking about today.
It makes sense.
Let's take care of that upkeep, though. First, I do want to talk to you about a company that helps bring this show to you every week. It's Original Magic Art. They recently just got to spoil the tokens that are in Unstable. Which did you see these today?
No, I have not. Where are all these spoilers happening? I keep up with Mythic Spoiler, and I have not.
Well, they didn't
see the new tokens.
They didn't make Mythic Spoiler because they're tokens. So what they're doing is there's a token in every pack. Half the tokens are going to be stuff relevant for Unstable, this goofball set. The other half are going to be tokens for actual cards. And what they're doing is one side is a regular token. The other side is a full art. It's like not just like, a BFZ land style full art. We're talking to the edges of the card art, no text whatsoever. It's pretty cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, so Josh got to spoil those, but he also runs a shop that has all sorts of cool tokens, playmats, dice bags, art prints. Definitely go check them out. They always are updating the store with new stuff, and they're constantly working with actual Magic artists to get officially licensed products available to you, the end consumer. And if any of this sounds appealing to you, if you show up on their website, fill up that cart, and you use the promo code Commontary, all caps and spelled as it is in the name of this show, you will get 5% off, and the pair of us get a little tiny financial kickback. So you're helping keep the lights on here, and you're getting a little bit of a deal when you shop for this wonderful, wonderful fancy art product. What do you got for us, Adrian?
Well, how would you like to support us directly via Patreon? You see, we have this Patreon. It's pretty cool. And what you can do with it is you can donate to us directly. And if you do that, you can actually get access to some cool things like our Discord, where you can talk to us basically all day because we are on there kind of a lot, actually. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, nice little community of fellow fans, and and for as little as $1 a show, you can listen to the raw, unedited, couple of days early versions of the episodes. Although I don't know if you saw the discussion, I was asking people if they actually listen to them, and some people just wait for the edited episode because they're used to Sunday being release day. But I don't know,
the fools.
If that appeals to you and you want to hear the pre and post show, definitely check it out. Any donation helps.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this morning we got the announcement that not only were 5 cards from the conspiracy expansions being added to MitGo and Pauper legal, but 9 other cards that have never made it onto MitGo are just kind of now out there, and those 9 are Pauper legal. And we're going to talk about it. So we kind of have an impromptu, not a set, but kind of a set review. And we're going to do it the same way we always do. Wooburg order, alphabetical, read the card, give you our opinions on it, what we think about it. And let's get this underway, because that's all we really got for today. First up, Brainwash. It is a white for an enchantment aura. Enchanted creature cannot attack unless its controller pays an additional 3 generic. This is bad.
But the art is Therese Nielsen.
It does have really, really gorgeous art. I will give it that.
So what does that say about it?
It says it looks pretty, but it's terrible. So this is actually a strictly worse version of Oppressive Rays, which is a white for an enchantment aura. Enchanted creature can't attack or block unless its controller pays 3, and any of their activated abilities cost 3 more to activate. So this has been outclassed by several margins. Art is real pretty though, and it is cool that we're now kind of getting closer to unified pools.
That's really the big takeaway from this is the unified pool.
Yeah, because originally when we were talking about this episode, because we saw the spoiler, the full like here's what's coming to the chess, and I had noticed like, hey, there's like a handful of cards here that are commons in paper but aren't online at all, and I was pretty sure that they were not going to be making these pauper legal, but they did.
That's good.
Yeah,
even though some of them aren't so great,
yeah,
but it's still good.
It's neat and interesting, and it drops that number. I think it's like there's 400 cards that exist in paper at common and not online, and that's not excluding conspiracies, not excluding all these like funny things where they won't put them online, but it's cool to see that we're getting a closer to unified pool.
And up next, should we go ahead and go to the next one?
Yeah. Hit me with an actually good card.
Yeah, this is the card I've been looking forward to. It is Custody Squire, a actually long called for. I think since the first Conspiracy, people have wanted this in the format. It is a 5 mana, 4 and a white, 3/3 with flying, Spirit Cleric with Will of the Council. When Custody Squire enters the battlefield, starting with you, each player votes for an artifact, creature, enchantment card in your graveyard. Return each card with the most votes or tied for the most votes to your hand. And it's fine. I hesitate to call it the White Mole Drifter, but it's close.
I mean, looking at this, I'm seeing like, if you want to compare it to Mole Drifter, you're losing the utility of Evoke, but you are gaining like the knowledge that you're going to get back a good card, assuming your opponent doesn't exile it or what have you.
And I see in your notes here that you think this would be a top end for maybe WX midrange or Tortex. I think that Boros Monarch is going to play at least one of these.
So are you thinking that playing this in Monarch, you're going to play this and maybe trim like a Palace Sentinels so that you like, because this could functionally be another one if one of them dies?
Yes, I think so. What I was also thinking of, and maybe this is Magical Christmas Land, but I think Boros Monarch and is actually the kind of deck that could actually pull this off. You Sin's Enlistment, you spend your next turn recasting Sin's Enlistment, discarding like Ancient Den, and then you can Custody Squire the land back to your hand, the artifact back to your hand, in order to Sin's Enlistment again. And like I said, like Boros Monarch is very much a very incremental card advantage deck like that, so it wouldn't surprise me if that's something you could do. You can also use it to rebuy your vials. You can use it to get back lands. You can use it to... It's actually very, very, very useful in that deck.
So actually, as I was thinking about it, I noticed something here. The way that Will of the Council works means that your opponent is forced into a position where once that ability goes on the stack, they have a chance to respond to it, but by the time the card is actually selected, they can't respond by exiling your graveyard. Because as soon as that ability resolves, the voting is part of the resolution.
So they can't vote and then decide they want to exile it. They would have to preemptively exile whatever they think you're going to vote for.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, with something like Relic of Progenitus, it's just a yes/no question, but there isn't that chance to go like, oh, well, now that I know what you're voting for, I don't want you to have that.
Yeah, because the trigger goes on the stack.
And the voting is part of the resolution.
And then, because it's not a targeted ability. You just vote. You just vote. That's exactly why the removal spell, Council's Judgment. Is that what that card is called? The white one.
The exile
that's
one.
That's why that card is good in Legacy, because you can vote for like True Name Nemesis or whatever.
Yeah. Now, I do also want to point out for the folks at home, if you play against this online, please figure out. I forget how Migo handles these. Does it put it in the chat? Is that what it is? Because I don't think I remember
where it puts what you're voting for. It should say it on the card.
Okay. It shows up there. Okay. Because I was gonna say, you really don't want to choose something other than what your opponent chose, because if you pick something else, they get back 2 cards, and that's not good.
But it is awesome if you were on the other end of that.
Yeah, and notably, this also doesn't get back lands, which is minor. Obviously,
it gets artifact lands.
Yeah, it will get back artifact lands. But this is kind of just like a neat card. I'd argue that this is the best Gravedigger / Oromancer / upgraded
counterpoint.
Yeah,
I mean, definitely the best. I have played with Sanctum Gargoyle before, though, in Affinity. And that card can be pretty sweet.
So Sanctum Gargoyle is what, 4?
It's a 4 for a 2/3, and it has to get back an artifact. So it's not better in a vacuum, but it is in Affinity. I would run the Sanctum Gargoyle because it is also itself an artifact. And actually, this is a good point for me to interject that Sanctum Gargoyle is actually very good in metas that involve Hymn to Torok.
Oh, huh. Because I never thought about it that way. That is very true. So I have a question. I mean, it's 1 mana more, and yes, the artifact thing does matter, but this does get back a handful more things in Affinity. Like, it does get back your ATOGs, which can be a win condition. It does.
That's true. I just don't
examination.
I really don't. I don't think Custodian Squire is going to get played in Affinity. No, Sanctum Gargoyle isn't also an artifact.
Yeah, no. Fair enough. And I guess the only other thing I'd want to touch on is there sort of any reason for this to fit into Tron deck? Because 5 mana can be a big ask of some decks, but in Tron that's chump change.
I'm reluctant to say yes, because I think Tron has better ways of getting back creatures already, like not Moorland Haunt, but Haunted Fengraf. And
Pulsamarasa.
And Pulsamarasa. I think that the things that this card does, Tron already has other ways of doing it, and I don't think they really want like a random 3/3 flyer.
Okay, fair enough. I see this being like a curve topper in mid range, and you definitely make a strong argument for this in Monarch. I can definitely see where you're coming from on that, and I'm willing to bet people are already jamming that as we speak. We are recording on Wednesday, so these cards have just hit Moto. But all right, next up, we've got an interesting one. We've got Drafna's Restoration, which is blue for a sorcery, and you put any number of artifacts from your graveyard on top of your library in any order. Actually, wait, I've misread this. Take any number of artifacts of your choice from target player's graveyard and place them on top of that player's library in any order.
So it's kind of like the original wording on Ancestral Recall: force your opponent to draw 3 cards.
Yeah, and I'm desperately like trying to figure out a way where this actually gets your opponent, but I'm failing to come up with anything here.
Give your opponent back a bunch of of their own artifacts. Doesn't seem so good. What is Copper Tablet? Give him back Copper Tablet. That's not even a common, but you know what I mean.
So okay, where could this possibly see play? There's a potential for like a weird eggs list. We obviously have Chromatic Star, Chromatic Sphere, and Terrarian. All of which draw a card.
Even there, I kind of don't like it, because that deck is trying to set up like a scrapyard salvo, and so putting all of your artifacts back on top of your deck doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Well, I guess what I'm thinking of is maybe including something like Reckless Fireweaver, the one where whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, ping someone.
Okay, that's
Or,
fair.
you know, for redundancy, you could also include Nettle Sentinel, which is the tap pinger that untaps every time an artifact enters the battlefield.
Not Nettle Sentinel, but some. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
God, it's Nettle something. Nettle Drone. There we go.
Yes, Nettle Drone. That's right. I knew what you were talking about. I was like, it's Nettle something.
The other card in Pauper with Nettle in its name that untaps when you cast spells that meet a certain requirement. But I don't think just like the Scrapyard Salvo plan would work, but you know, if there's a payoff, if you can come up with a decent payoff for cycling through a whole bunch of artifacts really, really quickly, and I guess like if you have, what is it, Ethereum Sculptor, you can do it at parity on mana.
I guess you could also, like, if you had ATOG in play, you could sacrifice a bunch of chromatic stars and then put them back on top and then draw them again and pump your ATOG up a couple more times. But yeah, I don't think it's very good.
Yeah,
I guess if you're getting Gorilla Shaman out of the game in Affinity, maybe it's good to put lands back on top. I really don't know. I feel like it's a powerful, interesting effect that we don't really have a lot of in the format, but it seems like such a do nothing.
Yeah, like if this said like draw a card at the end of it, maybe. Because like what is it? There's a Grave Purge, which does this with creatures, and then you draw a card. And that's not really playable, and I don't see this being dreadfully much more playable. I will note though, this got sweet new art. It shows like a city being like rebuilt by magic. I don't know. It's interesting, and I'm sure someone has an eggs list that was just waiting for this, but I don't think this is going to see serious play.
Bad cards can have sweet art, Mike.
Yeah.
Let's get to the next one. Up next, we have Ye Old Energy Tap, which is you, or a sorcery. Tap target creature you control. Add an amount of colorless mana equal to that creature's casting cost to your mana pool.
This card is very bad.
Yeah, I don't... It's like mana drain, but you don't counter your opponent's thing. You just tap your own creature.
The fact that you even mentioned mana drain in relationship to this card has made me regret being friends with you.
Yeah, let's think about it. Is there any practical application for wanting to tap? Well, what about
I tap my Gurmag Angler with Summoning Sickness and I can cast a Mirror Enforcer.
No, I was just thinking, like, what about tapping like Prosperous Pirates? Is there any reason that you'd ever want to like get that extra boost of colorless mana in like the Familiars deck?
I can't think of one. Like, that's the issue. I've been racking my brain as to like how this could possibly be a passable card.
Well, because if you're winning with Prosperous Pirates, I guess you have an infinite mana thing going anyway, so you don't really need to just one time tap your guy, spend a whole card, and then get colorless mana of all things. Unless, I guess it worked with like Karavik's Torch, but then again, like I said, I don't know why you're doing it.
But also, like, it's not going to get you a lethal Karavik's Torch out of nowhere. Like, you're going to have already worn your opponent down.
And you can't tap the same creature more than once because it's a sorcery, so you can't. Well, and then I just don't know. I don't know. I cannot really think of a practical application of the card in an existing deck. So,
just to give it its fair dues, Gurmag Angler, Mirror Enforcer, Gearseeker Serpent. You know, if you have an idea of how to get this card to pay off, I'd look at cards that cheat, the creatures specifically that cheat their own mana costs as a way to leverage this in some small way. I just
those decks don't want like this weird 7 mana burst and colorless. You know, if it was of any color, it's a whole different story. But
don't worry, we're getting to that card later down. Actually,
if it was blue, it'd be a different story. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. That card's bad too.
There are 2 more cards, sir. which we will
All
get
right.
to.
All right.
All right, let's move on from there,
Let's
though.
go to the next one.
The next one is Flood, which is blue for an enchantment, and it has an activated ability on it. Blue, tap target creature without flying.
Oh,
And
dude, it's totally moat.
oh man, that is a lot.
And the bad takes, they keep on coming and they don't stop coming.
Oh, they look, we're verging on levels of bad take that shouldn't even be possible, really.
All right, well, tell me why you don't like the card, and then I'll tell you why I also don't like it. But then I'll play devil's advocate.
Okay. My immediate comparison on this is Rhystic Circle. There was a deck that had seen some success called Rhystic Tron that used this weird enchantment out of Prophecy to hopefully set up a prison-like lock on the opponent. Flood, instead of costing generic mana to activate, costs 2 blue. And
Dabba die.
What was that?
It's a dabba die. Wink.
Yup, gotta get those 90s references in there. But so Rhystic Circle could prevent damage from any source, not just creatures, and not just ones without flying. And my biggest issue with this is this seems kind of poor against Monarch, and it seems kind of poor against Delver, because Delver has a lot of flying creatures and Monarch has a lot of creatures. So it's going to be very mana intensive, and specifically very intensive on colored mana. So go ahead, play devil's advocate on this one with me.
I can't. It's bad.
Oh man, you had me all hyped up. I was wondering what you were going to come at me with. Like, I see the appeal here. Like, I can see the appeal of like jamming this in some sort of like mono blue control list. It seems like a card that you would have to significantly build around, and then isn't very good against 2 decks that make up a decent chunk of the metagame. Like, I feel like for every time you manage to get a Stompy player with this, you're going to lose to like 2 Delver players.
Yeah, it's not good.
Right.
Next card.
Yeah, let's talk about this next one.
Wow, this card looks way better when you compare it to the last couple of cards we've looked at. This card is Skittering Crustacean, which is a 3 mana 2/3 pinchy boy. By that I mean he's a crab. It has 6 in a blue, monstrosity 4, and as long as it is monstrous, it is hexproof. So it becomes, for a low cost of 10 mana, a 6/7 hexproof.
Okay. Not, the easiest sales pitch here, but how do you get rid of a 6/7 with hexproof?
You basically have to edict it.
Yeah, that was kind of my thing. Like, 10 mana is a big ask, but a 6/7 with hexproof is kind of very, very strong.
Well, here's the thing. Would you play Benthic Giant? Do you think Benthic Giant is a good card?
No, but that's specifically, and I want to point this out, Benthic Giant lines up poorly with Gurmag Angler.
Okay, sure.
It also lines up poorly with what do you call it? Gearseeker Serpent, for what it's worth.
All right, let me take another tack here. Would you play Nessian Asp?
I don't remember the exact text of Nessian Asp, but I do remember it being a pretty solid limited card.
It doesn't get hexproof. Okay, so I'm willing to concede that. And I think it costs a little more initially, but it's a 4/5 with like it's a big monstrous guy that gets bigger, or snake. It's a 2-headed snake, and then it gets monstrous, and then it's a bigger 2-headed snake. And so I'm just saying I don't think the mechanic is really that good.
So I will say that that's a fair analysis. I think the fact that monstrous can be responded to, unlike, for example, Morph, makes this a little bit more difficult, because you do have that moment where you're like, I'm going to pay 7 mana, and if you have a lightning bolt, I'm just boned here.
Yeah.
That said, if you're in a situation where your opponent can't destroy this in response, and they're not playing like a lot of edicts, I don't know how you answer this thing. Like,
If you look at it, well, Monarch can like exile it before it gets monstrous, but yeah, if it's monstrous, yeah, there's really nothing you can do about it. But it just takes so long.
the lack of evasion is also a bit of a bummer, just because like against Monarch, for example, if you're generating a bunch of tokens, like this is never getting through.
Yeah, and you mentioned possibly Tron, but I feel like if you want a big stupid beater in Tron, you're just gonna play the Eldrazi with Annihilator, which is just better, I think.
Crusher I could see being arguably better. This thing though, the Hex
Annihilator though.
The Hex
but Annihilator. But Annihilator.
All right, I'm done with this bit. But I don't know. I don't think this is just a write-off. I think that because it does provide this very difficult to deal with body once monstrous, I think it might be worth jumping through some hoops, because we're currently in a metagame where edict effects are not super strong. I could see this doing well in some sort of deck that can efficiently pay that absurd cost to get this big old pinchy boy.
It's a big old pinchy boy.
All right.
Or girl. We can't really gender the crab, honestly. Up next we have one of the best cards ever. And I'll tell you why in just a second. It's Burnt Offering. It's B, or sacrifice a creature to add that creature's casting cost in any combination of red and or black mana to your mana pool. Do you know why this card is awesome? Because it has an homage to Wicker Man on it.
Dang it. I was really going to plead with you not to pour the bees on me, but
I'm talking about the good Wicker Man, not the Nicolas Cage remake. I've seen it in the original.
Okay. Yeah.
With Christopher Lloyd. No, wait, not him.
No, it's Donald Sutherland in the original, isn't it?
No, it's not. It's the dude who plays Count Dooku.
Oh, Christopher Lee. That's right.
That's Lee. Yeah, Christopher Lloyd is Dr. Brown or something.
Yeah, he's Doc Brown in Back to the Future.
Yeah.
Okay, so Burnt Offering. All right. So I just don't know, man. Like, I can't think of a way to abuse this, because
let me just spitball something at you real fast.
Sure.
What if there was some sort of deck where you had to sacrifice a creature to make a bunch of mana, and then with that mana, you also flipped over your library, and then you cast a bunch of spells out of your graveyard?
I'm calling the police.
Realistically, you're right. If it was a red spell, it'd be way better. In fitting in with the extremely busted ritual effects we have. But you're right. There's just not really a payoff to do this.
Yeah, I'm just struggling to find a situation where I have a creature with a very large mana cost that I want to turn into more mana. Like,
yeah, you could tap it with energy tap, and then you could sacrifice it to Burnt Offering, and then you have double the amount of mana of what that creature cost.
I'm literally dying here. Can we please, please continue on?
And then, all right, let's go to the next one. Sure.
All right, the next one.
The next one is an Austin Pantera song.
So the next one is Cemetery Gate, which is 2 and a black for an 0/5 wall with protection from black.
Do you know Cemetery Gate?
Yes, I'm aware of Pantera.
Reverend. Okay, I'm done. There's also an Avenged Sevenfold spell on here, though. Sorry, I'm getting goofy.
So this thing, it only has one application I could come up with, and that is the fact that this thing lives through Pestilence, and is a good blocker, I guess. There's not a whole lot of stuff running around with more than 5 power that's not a black creature, and the stuff that is already kind of running over you as is. So does this make mono black Pestilence a thing?
I don't know. Could you put Burnt Offering in it and then activate Pestilence a whole bunch?
I feel like you've made your stance on this card quite clear in very, very few words.
No, I mean that works. Mono Black Pestilence. So you would just have like a you'd have Pestilence, obviously. You would have Cemetery
Adrian,
Gate. You'd
Adrian,
have
Adrian.
what?
You can play Bubbling Muck.
You could play Bubbling Muck. Okay, let's. Yes, you could absolutely play Bubbling Muck. What does the rest of this deck look like? Let's see. You're obviously playing Bojuka Bog. You're playing Mortuary Mire. You might be playing something out of Baron Moors. How are you getting the life back? You need to play like you need to play Gainland, not Gainlands. The like how not Hallowed Fountain. What's the Radiant Fountain? Play Radiant Fountain.
But Radiant Fountain doesn't add black mana to your mana pool. I think. You know what? I'm gonna say something very bad. I think you play Drain Life effects. I don't know.
Oh, that's your alternate win con. Sure. Okay.
This idea is rough at best.
No, I love it. I'm building this deck.
Please.
I'm not building this deck.
I can't bear this. Let me take care of this next one as well, because also bad. Also 2 and a black is Pit Scorpion. It is a 1/1. If Pit Scorpion damages an opponent, they get a poison counter. And then this printed version of it does remind you, if a player has 10 or more poison counters, they lose the game.
Now, so has this been errated to infect, or is it the sliver? Okay, so you could put this. Isn't there a black infect deck?
If there is, it shouldn't be.
No, I'm just saying there's another black infect card with
Plague
Stinger. Yeah. An Ichor Claw Mirror. No, this is a thing. You're wrong. Let's get to the next card, which is actually halfway decent. True to Black gets you a 2/2 Grizzly Bear, except it's not. It's Sinuous Vermin. It's a rat horror. It has 3 black monstrosity 3. As long as Sinuous Vermin is monstrous, it is menace. And it took a while for me to realize in this picture the rat is actually part of the tentacle monster.
Yeah, I was just having a discussion about this at work today, actually, with my coworker, because he saw all the popper stuff that was added in, and it looks like the rat is actually like a lure, kind of like one would find on, say, an angler. And I think that's the immediate.
Speaking of angler, this card is much worse.
I think it's much worse because of your ability to not turbo it out. But I think in some sort of mid-range deck where you need a way to use your mana later in the game, I actually kind of like this. A 5/5 with Menace is nothing to sneeze at. I've constantly been impressed with Menace ever since they keyworded it. But I actually kind of like this. I guess what's your reasoning for saying it's worse than Angler?
You cannot turbo it out. It has the same stats, and it costs way more. Like over the course of the game, you're looking at 2 installments for a total of. I guess it's both. I guess they're both 7. They don't cost more. I was wrong.
Yeah,
I've been wrong before.
Like it is a very good comparison to Angler. Part of the thing I like about this is you can just play it turn 2, and then on turn 5, if you don't have anything else to do with your mana, this thing turns into a real threat. I also like the fact that it's in, as opposed to Skittering Crustacean, this one's in a color that's already equipped to deal with the fact that your opponent might have removal. So, being able to, just going to toss it out there, this is an unearthed target.
That's actually a very good call. I don't think this card is going to put mono black back on the map or anything, but it's definitely a get for that deck in that regard. I didn't think about unearth.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is a very mid-rangey card, and while you can certainly get punished by paying 5 mana and your opponent just goes bolt it, you can get got with this. But I think this one to me is a little bit more appealing than Skitter and Crustacean, just because with that built-in fragility and the fact that your opponent's going to know that they can have this gotcha moment if they're playing red or even black, this is definitely, I think, better than Skitter and Crustacean. Not in a vacuum, just in context.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Anything else you want to touch on with our little rat friend?
Little rat friends. I used to have two of them in college. They were good.
That
They weren't
doesn't
sinuous for
surprise me in the least.
All right, move onward and upward to the next.
All right, next up we have Borderland Explorer, which is 1 and a green for an elf scout. It's a 3/1, and when it enters the battlefield, each player may discard a card. Each player discarded a card this way may search their library for a basic land card, reveal it, and put it into their hand, then shuffle their library. I don't like this.
I'm not the biggest fan either. And at first, when this first got released, I was actually pretty excited about it. It does seem really cool. But like you mentioned here, letting your opponent do this is terrible.
Yeah, I can't help but think, like, you know, if your opponent's a little bit light on land, or like, just gonna toss it out there. Currently, a lot of those Monarch decks are playing Sen's Enlistment. Like, can you imagine your opponent just going, okay, gonna pitch this Sen's Enlistment, get me another land so I can recast that Sen's Enlistment?
It's pretty bad.
But on the other side, so the obvious synergy here would be Madness. Are there any good retrace spells you'd like to combo with this guy? I'm just trying to think of what the
Raven's Crime.
Raven's Crime. Okay.
I like Raven's Crime. Are there any green retrace spells? I don't think so. No, not in common. There's like Crush of Worms, right?
So I'm pulling it up right now. Okay, so we've got Flame Jab at common. We've got Monstrify, which is a +4/+4 for 4 mana at sorcery speed. We've got
Crush of
Una's
Worms
Grace.
is a totally different card, just by the way. Sorry, y'all.
Yeah, it is. It's the funky flashback one, right? With the bunch of worms. We also have Siphon Life, the drain a player for 2. I guess with that there's some utility. Like the Madness synergy is pretty obvious, and I don't think is all that great. I think over the years I've come to realize that most of the Madness payoffs are not super impressive, at least in my opinion.
No, you like arrogant worm. You have you could probably put this in blue-green Madness, but I just think that the dog probably does a better job of what you want to do than this card.
Yeah, it's not a good discard enabler, and it's not really ramp either. It just kind of ensures that you hit that 3rd land drop if you need to.
For those of you who don't know, the dog is Wild Mongrel.
Yeah, that is, I think, the only hound that's ever seen serious play. Like maybe Isamaru in like a White Weenies list, but
you know how you remember that because in Odyssey block, you were either the Tog or the dog.
Yep.
It's a little rhyme. You can remind yourself about what was good and standard at that time.
Okay, one last thing I do want to touch on. This thing does have like we've seen this 1/3 for 2 body a lot in white, and it's interesting to see it with upside now, and also in green, I guess. But I guess does the fact that this is an elf have any relevance?
You could play it in elves.
Do you want to?
No, not really. I'm just saying, like it's an elf. You can play it in elves, I guess. I don't know. No, it's not.
All right. How about you? We'll close the door on Borderland Explorer. Can you take this next spoiler? And I think this is the most important one and the one we're going to really dig in on.
You've given me like the best cards. The next card is a 4 or 5 mana, 4 and a green elf soldier. So a much better elf, by the way. It is Entourage of Trest. We got 3 elves strolling down the street, looking pretty good actually in their uniforms, truth be told. When Entourage of Trest enters the battlefield, you become the monarch. Entourage of Trest can block an additional creature each combat as long as you're the monarch. So you become the monarch, and dang, you can hold on to it. This card is pretty nuts. It's very, very good.
So where are you thinking this is going to find its best home?
The deck that exists that I think can take the most advantage of this is going to be Tron. I know that we've talked a little bit about off the show about maybe putting it into like green, blue fog, turbo fog. I just think that deck wants to be a little bit more nimble. I don't think it ever wants to tap out for like 5 mana to cast this. If the game goes that long, then I don't know. I guess it could be good because maybe you get all your Jace's stuff blown up. So I guess it's actually not that bad. Oh, and then you draw the card, and then your opponent mills. Okay, it's actually very good. I lied.
I think the only other home I'd really want to touch on for this is elves. Like, it is an elf. That deck produces a ton of mana. 5 mana is not unreasonable. It already runs a playset of Lissalana Huntmasters. And that deck is already splashing blue for a draw spell. So with this and the fact that Lead the Stampede has come to Mitgo already, and I did check out the Maverick gal over on Twitch, and she was streaming with it, and it seems Lead the Stampede seems quite good in elves. This could potentially find a home there as maybe a 1 or 2 of, because it really does kind of help you help prevent that situation of you getting into a situation where you're not drawing any gas. And on top of that, it does help clog up the board a little bit. And it's not like you don't have a lot of blockers as is. Like, sure, flyers can still get in, but I could definitely see this being something that elves wants. Because even if you're just trading the Monarch back and forth each turn,
why even bother playing blue? Yeah, I like it.
I think that there's a case to be made for like mono green elves as something that people should be testing right now to see if it works.
I want to test it. I've been on Moto while we've been on this cast, just looking for these cards though, and I cannot find them. They are nowhere.
They've literally come out within the past 24 hours. They will make their way into the economy.
It's very, very annoying.
Now with Tron, are you thinking this in like a Marasa Tron or a Denrova Tron? Where are you thinking this finds a home?
Definitely Marasa. You can always pulse it back. And friend of the show, Jay Steery, did mention that, and I'll give him full credit for this. The best way to fight Monarch is the way that the Boros deck beats Tron, so you need to be able to fight them on Monarch. If you can then in turn become the Monarch without having to splash for black or white for one of the other ones, then you're in much, much better shape. Not to mention that this does block an additional creature, which Tron, I think, does care about.
Yeah, and it does, like, the 4/4 body means that even if you block 2 creatures, there's a decent chance of eating one or both of them, which I do really like. The fact that it's like the simplistic way to view this is, okay, it's like got a 1-use fog attached to it where, I just block 2 big things. There's enough small things running around this format where this could potentially eat 1, maybe 2 of your opponent's creatures if they swing in against it.
A 4/4 is pretty large in Pauper. I think that you're getting into like Mirror Enforcer, Carapace Forger levels there. Obviously, Gurmag Angler is bigger, but I don't think Angler decks are super on vogue currently. Straight up trades with Denrova Horror.
I was going to say, even like this against an Angler deck, if they swing in with Angler and another thing on the ground, like I'm pretty okay trading this for, to block an Angler and maybe eat something else, or, blocking 2 Anglers. Like, stonewalling 10 damage for a turn is nothing to sneeze at. And obviously, if you're playing this in a deck with Pulse, like stopping 2 of your opponent's attackers, maybe eating 1 of them, and then pulsing this thing back, gaining 6 life, and casting it out again in case you've taken damage and are no longer the Monarch. That seems like a heck of a turn.
And Tron is very in the market for just fogging every turn, so it's good.
Yeah, I think that this is, out of these 14 cards, this is the biggest get. This is the one that's going to see the most play. And again, like, I just want to touch on the fact Monarch is a very, very good mechanic in 1v1.
Yeah. Why don't you take the next terrible card?
Metamorphosis, because apparently we didn't have enough cards that care about converted mana costs. Metamorphosis is a green for a sorcery. Sacrifice a creature to add an amount of mana equal to its casting cost +1 to your mana pool of any color. Use this mana only to cast creature spells.
This might be the best one. Honestly, this one might be the best one.
I mean, it adds an extra mana. This is basically birthing pod. Yeah. This is
Pretty.
this is neither Wizards nor Christopher Rush who illustrated this. It's neither of their respective best works.
The art's pretty gnarly if you haven't ever seen it, actually.
The art's gnarly, but like also deeply, deeply dated. I don't know.
Yeah.
This card is bad. Don't play it.
Up next, we have another bad card called Salvage. Take any one card from your graveyard and put it on top of your library, and it shows this lovely elf maiden just looting the corpse of this hideous thing, which maybe is also an elf. I really don't know.
So this is a functionally worse version of Reclaim. And have you ever seen Reclaim cast in Pauper?
Dude, all the time. You're not on the sweet Reclaim tech? You're wrong.
I'm calling the police. This card is bad.
The card is very, very bad.
Okay.
So we talked about the good cards. We talked about the bad. Overall, always nice to have more cards in the format. Do you think the format will look different? Or maybe not, actually. Both of the cards that we thought were good go into existing decks. So,
yeah, I don't think that's going to mean that the format is, not significantly changed. I just think that, I don't think it's strictly like the rich get richer sort of situation, right? I definitely think that these cards can have other applications than the ones we pointed out. And we're definitely eager to hear from people who have alternate applications for these. Worth noting, today we also saw the release of Iconic Masters. I did mention it briefly, but you had put something in our planning doc. You wanted to talk about Seeker of the Way.
Wait, is Iconic Masters actually, it's not out yet?
It's available right now, dude. It's legal.
On Moto?
Yeah.
I'm so confused. I didn't realize it was like that soon. I mean, I've seen advertisements for draft, but okay. All right.
It comes out
let's talk about that
on Friday, dude.
It's already on Moto?
Yeah.
Dude, I've really not been keeping up this week, as you can tell. All right, let's talk about Iconic. I guess we're talking about Iconic Masters.
Well, you had specifically pointed out Seeker of the Way, so I guess what
well,
were your
I didn't.
thoughts on that
One of our patrons pointed it out, raising my eyebrows. They wanted us to discuss. We should probably name them. Actually, give credit where it is due. I'm going to the Discord so I can remember who suggested this. That was literally everyone. No, it wasn't. Hold on. Someone suggested this. Yes, it was Job. Thank you, Job. I knew it was someone. Seeker in various shells. So we're not getting a full hour out of this, nor did I really expect to, but I think this is a good conversation topic. Seeker of the Way, for those of you who don't remember, is a 1/2 with lifelink with prowess. And sort of it is a good card. It was played in its standard time. So it's certainly a constructed playable card. Used to be an uncommon, now is a common. And really the thing that I think people are excited about is that it has prowess. And so I'm making the case, and I don't want to distort the deck too much because I actually think it's pretty good, but I could see this maybe getting played in the Boros sideboard. Maybe it's not good enough for the sideboard because that's a little, maybe want some more like dedicated hate cards when this card is going to be relevant. But just the idea of like being able to play this guy on turn 2, and then on turn 3 you can play like a prophetic prism, trigger the prowess, Glint Hawk, bounce the prophetic prism. You're drawing a card, you're playing another creature, you're pumping this guy. Like it just seems like it has a lot of really sweet interactions in that deck.
Okay, I can definitely see where you're coming from with that, just because you can repeatedly trigger that lifelink clause as well as the prowess. I guess my question is, like, if you're putting this in the sideboard, are you just bringing this up in matchups where you feel like you're going to be racing a lot? Or
like I could like maybe burn or red decks, but then why aren't you just playing cop red if you're really worried about that matchup? I guess it's okay versus control because it gives you like a singular threat that they must deal with.
I guess my thing is, I feel weird about it being a sideboard card because I don't feel like the matchups where it's going to really matter. I don't know. I almost kind of want to see it main deck. That's my thing, is if you're going to kind of maybe tweak the deck a little bit to play nicely with this, why not go whole hog? Why not just make sure that it's something you can see routinely? I don't know. That's just my gut reaction here, but I think that maybe just main decking this thing so that when you draw it in your opener, you just kind of go, okay, well, I'm gonna get a little extra value out of the prisms, a little extra value out of the vials, and a little extra value out of my burn spells. I don't know.
Sure.
I'm just kind of thinking about this as something that gives you a little bit more early game reach, but I don't know if that detracts too much from the overall game plan that Monarch has.
No, I think it's fine. I'm having issues on like what do you take out? That's all.
Yeah, it is a very tight list. There was kind of a reason why when I looked at this card, my first reaction was like, oh, maybe you can play this in some sort of like white token shell, just because with Monarch, like, again, what do you take out? Like, you're not cutting the Thraben Inspectors.
You can't really like the bounce package, like your worst cards in a vacuum, but they're just like the whole crux of the deck. So,
and like, you're not cutting Monarch. Like we just spent a solid 10 minutes talking about a green Monarch card and how big that was. So,
yeah, Monarch's too good. I mean, maybe Battle Screech. I just don't know. It's really tough because the deck doesn't lack 2-drops. The deck has a ton of 2-drops. It doesn't really need another one. But that's not to say that the card is bad. Maybe I guess it really depends on the meta, right? Like maybe if your meta game shifts. Sorry, were you gonna say something?
No. Go ahead.
Oh, I don't really know where I was going with that. I was hoping you were going to interrupt me.
I guess my big thing here is just I'm not sure where this thing has a home. I've seen a lot of people being like, "Oh, there's like this blue-white prowess deck," but I've looked at lists people have come up with for it now. And I'm like deeply unenthused by them, just because they all kind of seem to be like, "Okay, we're doing cute things with cantrips and prowess guys." Okay, I don't get why you're not just playing Delver Fiend then, or I guess Blue Red Blitz, since they've cut the Delvers out of that deck. I don't know. I feel like we're going to see a lot of different variations of Monarch the first couple weeks, and then the format's going to very quickly sort of coalesce around the quote unquote correct answer for the deck. Do you feel like that's where this is headed?
Yeah, absolutely. That's where constructed formats generally go.
Well, I mean, there are some formats wherein archetypes have several sub archetypes, but I guess.
Oh, sure.
What are you going to be trying out since you've been playing a decent amount of Boros Monarch?
Not very well lately, I might add, but definitely be trying out Custody Squire if I can get my hands on some. And I'm okay to test out Seeker of the Way. Let me go to Goldfish and see what the latest Seeker deck looked like, or the latest Boros deck looked like. It also makes me wonder if you want to. I don't know.
What are you thinking about? What are you thinking about? Let's pick that brain.
Well, the latest deck that won played 2 Firebolts. Maybe you could play 2 Seekers instead of the 2 Firebolts. My current list does not play Firebolt. That seems like the most obvious card that you could cut. It's definitely my least favorite, which is why I ended up not playing them locally. But it is very good against decks like Stompy. It's just not very good against decks that you're already good against.
Yeah,
it's good against decks you're already good against.
Well, I'm looking at this recent one for the challenge, and like, there's 3 lone missionaries in the board. I have to imagine that, like, in a lot of cases, you could probably just sub those out one for one with.
Oh yeah, I was looking at the main deck because of our conversation. But yeah, you could easily do that. But then I guess it's like, why aren't you just playing lone missionary? You just get the 4 life, you know.
Yeah, I can see that argument as well. I'm just thinking, like, the upside on Lone Missionary is maybe I bounce this back and replay it, whereas like Seeker of the Way represents a threat that can grow on a good turn. I don't know. I think if you want to play Seeker in this, you do wind up being a slightly faster deck, and maybe
you transition off a Monarch, you just go back to Golgotha.
Yeah, like some just low to the ground sort of deal where you're maybe even back to stuff like Golgotha Rebirth, just so that you have more non-creature spells.
Yeah, and then you're playing Ichor Wellspring, so that's fine. Yeah, maybe you want to be Golgotha. You want to be Golgotha and not Monarch if you are playing Seeker of the Way. I could see that.
Okay, I think that's a decent idea. Obviously, Monarch is a very, very powerful ability, so it would be losing out on something. But I could definitely see there being like sort of this low to the ground aggressive red-white deck that also plays this goofy artifact-based draw engine. But I don't know. I guess the other thing to say is, like, if you just transition to a more aggressive version of the deck, you're not in the quote unquote mirror where you're seeing a red white deck that is playing Monarch. You can probably get the Monarchy from them if you're being more aggressive.
Sure. I was playing a couple more creatures too. Yeah, although Palace Sentinels does a pretty good job of blocking this. But if you like blast Palace Sentinels, attack with my 3/3 lifelinker, I don't know. That seems. I take the Monarchy. That seems pretty good.
Yeah. All right, so we're pulling up on an hour, and before you take us out of the show, I do want to do something here. We added this on our Patreon, and I did say that we'd be thanking a person who donated at the $3 or above level, and this week we're gonna take a moment to thank David Lee, longtime patron and all around good folk. He talks to us on Twitter, and we definitely appreciate your input. Thanks for helping us, David.
I think that guy, David, I think you might be one of the first people we've ever had listen to the show. I know that we have a couple other ones. I haven't forgotten you. I'll make that same comment for the ones that I know. I'm thinking of one other person in particular. You know who you are.
We've got some people who've been listening for a long, long time.
Yeah.
All right. So with that, I think I'm ready for you to take us out of the show. How about you get on that, Adrian?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for joining us today. This podcast is brought to the support of our patrons. Consider supporting us if you like the show, you like hearing your name, or you just want to talk to us all day. Check below this video or the description of this podcast for details on where to find us. We'd like to remind you that if you're listening to this on a platform with reviews, they're always appreciated because they boost our visibility. If you've got a deck list or idea for a topic, feel free to contact us either via our website or by emailing us directly at colorcommentary@gmail.com. Special thanks to Pat's Games, a local Austin store, sort of the progenitor of our show, if you will. It's definitely how Mike and I met. And special thanks to L. You can find our theme song, his song Quantitative, and other great tracks on his SoundCloud, soundcloud.net/ELLELLELLELL. Till next week, this is Adrian and Mike, and we are signing off for Color Commentary.